Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Gyle here, and welcome back to the Forged Alliance Forever promotional series. And I've got some high-quality ladder action coming away this afternoon, chaps. And I just imagine there's an audible groan emanating from half of you who are desperate for more team games. I know how much you love your team action, guys. I'm still installing new software and stuff, things like Photoshop, which I use to do the overlays and things like that. So I will be bringing you guys epic amounts of team action tomorrow, next day, that kind of thing. I've actually got a stack of pretty juicy looking team replays that I've been sitting on thanks to my little sabbatical last week. So fear not, there will be plenty of team action coming your way. Today's game, however, is going to be ladder, and it's going to take place on Fields of Isis. So let's go on over to the game zone, see how these guys are going to get on. So, all pretty familiar with Fields of Isis. Let's take a look at our players. Over here in the top left-hand corner, in the blue corner, it's Yamadama. He's going Aeon, opening first land, and his opponent down here at the bottom right, my good friend and fellow caster TA4life, he's going Aeon, also opening first land, his very customary Aeon. And this is a bit of a deviation from tradition for me, because I'm doing something I never usually do, and that is I am casting a game which I haven't previously watched. Some of you will be wondering why I have to watch the games first. It's because there is a devilish issue with the replays, a devilish desync issue, and I have to watch every single replay I get sent to the end on usually +10 just to make sure that I don't cast the whole thing. I only find out desyncs in the last 5 minutes. The whole thing's useless. I've wasted my time. So this particular one, though, was sent in to me by TA4life, and that's not a spoiler because he's a particularly honourable guy. He sends me just as many replays in which he loses as he does when he wins. But he says this is a really interesting replay, and it doesn't desync, so I trust him implicitly. And it's also coming up to around an hour long, so it may be an epic, it might not. That's why I haven't put it in the title. If it does go over an hour, it'll be obviously coined an epic on YouTube if it does, but if not, it will not. Incidentally, on the desync issue, guys, Zep has started a forum thread. He's trying to tackle it once and for all, these collating replays. So if he could get his hands on as many as possible, that would be ideal. Talk about that in just a second as we get the first little mini engagement kicking off between these two. TA4life has a spirit, wheels it north to avoid a spirit and a lab from Yamadama. Meanwhile, a little micro engagement there between two labs, between these two guys. Emerging victorious, though, is a lab, a flare for Yamadama, getting the better of that exchange. But like I say, Zep trying to pull or create a pool of replays that desync. He has a thread on the forums, guys. If you're too lazy to find it yourselves, do just shout at me in the comments section, and I guess I will throw a link in the description to this video. So basically, if you know you have a replay that desyncs, and you could follow the instructions on that thread, he wants you to look at the logs as well once you've loaded that replay up, just so you can tell him what beat it desyncs. He's looking for patterns, basically, so he can maybe finally knock this issue on the head once for all. For those of you that aren't aware, I have promised to give him £100, or give anybody £100 if they can solve the desync issue once and for all. Anyway, Yamadama speeding through there with a lab, picks off another unit of TA4life, this time a spirit, and he's going to hide a lab and a scout, a combat scout up here. And TA4life needs to be a little bit careful. He is expanding with an NG down here. He's got a couple of Auroras in tow. Yamadama wheels south. Is going to put some pressure on the engineer, but that engineer will make it back to base. He does face off against a spirit, but that's got its woeful 2 DPS. So he will live to fight another day. He will live to make it to the mess hall this evening. It's steak night tonight, so he'll be thrilled about that. Best night of the week in the Aeon Intel barracks there. But scout plane out for TA, bomber out for Yama, heading east. Bomber out for both, in fact, as this one from TA closes in, drops the bomb away, and that's going to slow up Yamadama's expansion. That hydrocarbon going to have to be completed by a different engineer. There are a couple of clumped NGs there that TA4life would do well to knock out. Bombs away from Yama. Nicely microed, though, from TA. Keeps it alive. And that bomber And TA picked up 2 others. I think that was an Aurora and a Spirit, but not going to get any further as an Interceptor knocks him out of commission. Gets another pass, and that engineer won't make it to Steak and Cheese Night tonight. Very, very sad indeed. 2 ACUs meeting in the middle at the top aperture, and this is of course the regular Fields of Isis map, the traditional GPDG version with all of the reclaim in these apertures. These guys go straight for those T3 Rex as you would expect. TA4life getting the better slightly of the initial exchange perhaps. Yamadama on around 9,000 hit points, TA4life on around 9,300. Not much in it between these two. We'll take a look at who's doing better on reclaim so far. It's 2,700 for Yamadama and 1,800 there for TA. That is why Yamadama was looking a little bit more peaky on the ACU there. But Yama getting the initial better deal on the reclaim. TA4life pushing down here with some units. Needs to keep this engineer clear. Doesn't manage to do it. Lab picks up the kill there. And that's really annoying because that would have been TA4life getting his grubby little paws on all of the mass down here for essentially no reply. The next incoming engineer's back here for Yama. So that was a nice emergency pickup there from Yama, slowing up TA's progression towards the reclaim. Always good to see, and some interesting little air battles going on overhead between these two. Nothing decisive too early on in the game for air to play that much of a role. And of course priority target would be for both these guys. These intel structures are such a popular place to throw down your radar, giving you great coverage but also protecting you from just the straight push of your opponent's T1 units. Of course, there's no difficulty in nestling up some T1 artillery in here. You can still launch it over the edge and knock out those radars, I believe. If you get it in the right situation, the right position. TA4life moving forward with the ACU. I think we can bump that up to +1 now. And he's got some units in tow as well. Yama not wanting to stick around and entertain that one. He's going to back up. He's going to bring in a bomber while he's at it. Doesn't manage to get the bomb off on the first pass. Too much lateral movement there from TA's units. TA brings in some interceptors to deal with that bomber threat. That's going to knock that out of the sky nicely. And this is looking pretty good from TA here in the first 7.5 minutes. Already pushing way up here to these other 2 mexes with this little band of Auroras, and he seems to have temporarily secured the southern aperture. And with that in mind, engineer busy getting his hands on the reclaim. See how that's changed things. TA4life up to around 4,200 mass, Yamadama on 4,500, so very much a more normalized picture. Yamadama though considerably better on mass per tick, coming in eco-wise 61 to 41. Obviously, that's very much in flux. Yamadama making a little bit of a push here. TA4life wants to be careful, doesn't want to lose these NGs just when they're about to get their hands on the T3 Rex. You can see one going for the Harbinger Wreck there. Yama doesn't quite have enough numbers to push through and knock them out. TA4life managing to get his own Auroras in the way. Needs to be really careful there, and there it goes. Bomber takes it out after all. Has that pushed him ahead though in the reclaim? 6,500 to 5,000. Yes, it has, but TA4life now having pretty critical power issues back at base. But that is a nasty band of T1 now that he's pushing with up here. Luckily, Yamadama has an eruptor in place, so some T1 PD in some way to nullifying that threat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 T1 land factories in play there for TA. Conversely, we're looking at 6 for Yamadama, so a larger, more significant amount of production capability there for TA. Certainly on the ground, that is. We've got 1 air factory for TA, but 2 air factories there, 3 air factories for Yama, so that's where the extra eco has been sunk. Yama putting a little bit more work into the air game. He's going to need to make that pay, and pay quite quickly. That's the only thing that concerns me for his sake. 1, 2, 3, 4 inties there, covered by 3 down here from TA. TA goes off after the inties, ignoring the bomber, which could be a mistake. There's a couple of clumped NGs down here, which it looked like that bomber was circling for. That would have been a nice pickup. Instead, he's going after the main pack of Auroras, picking up at least 4 Aurora kills there. And I can hear some upgrades going on. There we go. TA4life upgrading his ACU way back there. Yamadama nearly finished on an upgrade. Looks like the left arm there for Yamadama, which will be engineering suite, T2 engineering suite. There we go. So access to T2 tech up front for Yamadama. Immediately starts construction of some T2 point defense. Oblivion turret being thrown together there. Can we infer from TA? Also looks like he's going for a left arm upgrade, so it also looks like it's going to be engineering suite. It's not an exact way to measure things. Sometimes it can be pretty difficult to tell, but a lovely little bomb there from Yamadama. That looks like 7 dead Auroras. That's another couple overhead as well. Yamadama doing some great work at thinning out this horde of units down here for TA. And is that a swift wind? It is a swift wind. So TA making the transition to T2 air. Needs to get them out in decent numbers, though, if he's going to combat the amount of interceptors on the field. Yama, conversely, going straight for T2 land. And that is a dense ball of T1 that's really going to open up the field, I think, at the northern aperture. TA4life working on a stealth field gen. He's going to want to get together some T2 point defense, I think, just in case. That definitely was the engineering suite on the comm there. Swiftwind's doing a decent job at tidying up these T1 bombers. And quite a lot of static anti-air being dotted around the place. TA4life clearly irritated by the early bomber work there from Yama. And quite the open door up here for TA, who was building a TAC missile base. And needs to be pretty darn careful. He does have his commander up front, but only 4,000 power in the bank. No energy storage at the moment, so no overcharge, which is kind of a shame. He's going to want to be able to dish out some pain here. The eruptors open up. There are a couple of fervors back here. He's going to be able to finish them off without any trouble. Unfortunately, the TAC missiles have been scouted. So if TA manages to bag any significant kills with it, it will be quite lucky for him, especially since there are volcanoes already lying in wait. That one sails overhead just as the volcano was due to be completed, manages to take down a T2 mechs, and that actually levels the eco race pretty much between these two players. It's working about 100 apiece, and then suddenly TA jumps to 112, but I think it is going to be around the 100 mark. That might have been false reading on some reclaim there. But TA still holding a slight advantage in terms of map control. That might change now that we've got some obsidians on the field for Yamadama. Some very nice countering work from Yama, discovering those TAC missiles and even taking one of the launchers down. Despite being under heavy eruptor fire, TA4life selects targets further south. Unfortunately for him, there are more volcanoes in place. And now these two southern armies clash. I think there is still just too many units on the field there for TA. for Yama just to be able to roll through there despite the tech advantage that he's got. We've got a lot of paused factories there for TA. That's usually symbolic of upgrades. We have got T2 Tech, Land Tech on the field now for TA as well. There's a ton of T1 power gens there for TA. So it definitely looks to be about 55 to 45% map control in favor of TA. This continuous stream of T1 spam adding to the pile down here is going to make it all the more difficult for Yamadama to be able to break through. Their mass still pretty much on par with one another. TA sitting on 23.5k reclaim, not bad for 17 minutes. 10k conversely for Yamadama, so TA doing considerably better out of the reclaim side of things. It's not hard to see how he's managed to grab the extra portion of the map. Yamadama actually still ahead on base mass income though, so these extra mass points in TA's hands down here not significantly tipping the balance in his favor at all. But once again, Yamadama decides to have a little bit of a push, this time led by Blazes with some Obsidians and Auroras in tow. TA4life is going to hold his position here, more or less, and Yamadama, whilst inflicting pretty heavy casualties, manages to lose that entire southern force and is looking pretty thin on the ground here at 18.5 minutes compared to TA up here. That attack missile launcher still operational, still looking for chinks in his opponent's armor. Going for the outlying static defense structures, going after Oblivion turrets. And Yama needs to do something if he's going to break out of here. Some move to T3 or something like that would be ideal. He can get straight to T3, and that's in fact what he's going for. 70% done on that T3 HQ. The emergence of Harbs should definitely be enough to break through this little pile down here. The question is TA4life matching step for step? Not at the moment. That HQ still happy as Larry at Tech 2. Instead, he's gone for T3 Air, so TA4life continuing to mix things up. He's self-destructed a whole bunch of those T1 power gens. I guess he feels he doesn't need that right now. How's he actually doing on power now? He's got that T3 factory not particularly well. You can see he's producing T3 engineers. He's going to want to get his power grid sorted out ASAP. Quantum reactor under construction there. That should solve a few issues, but in the meantime he's having some very bad power issues indeed. I wonder if he's doing kind of RAS upgrade at the moment at the same time. You can see the impact that's having. It's 169 mass to 87 right now. 87 is a significant drop in TA's mass income, purely because of how hard he's stalling on power. So lesson to you newbies out there, you might think power is abundant, you might think it doesn't matter too much when you redline, but it affects your mass proportionally. You don't have the power to adequately run your mass extractors, you're going to lose out. But a nice bombing run there from Yamadama, a couple of T1 bombers taking out definitely more in value of the T1 there than they were worth. Swiftwind circling overhead from TA, doesn't want a repeat of that, and in come the halves for Yamadama. How is TA going to respond? Has he realized that there is now T3 building up in this pile? Instantly see the difference in firepower in that little band as Yamadama decides to push. TA forced to fall back through that southern aperture. TA's units getting absolutely slaughtered, but I think that was the RAS upgrade at the same time for TA way back here. You can see he's jumped to 207 to 191 or 186 as that fluctuates. Let's take a look at what's actually on TA's commander. Indeed it is. It's not just RAS, it's advanced RAS. So pretty significant income boost there for TA. The question is, has it cost him going for that much that quickly? Yamadama gaining some advantage on the field down here now, and he's also facing pretty hefty tech disadvantage on the ground. He does, however, have T3 air available to him. He can start producing some restorers. Perhaps he can stop this little Harbinger push. He's going to start throwing together Oblivion turrets at any rate, but 5 Harbs still on the field here for Yamadama. Now a whole bunch of build capacity under pressure. They're all going to get incinerated, and only one Oblivion turret stands its ground in amongst them. And finally we have some T3 land and T3 air turning up simultaneously there for TA. They take out the Ascendant. That Restorer can now work unmolested. And once again, TA begins the task of pushing back his opponent, but that's enough to get Yamadama on top in terms of eco. 197 plays 207. Yamadama approaching the 19, or just gone over the 19.5k mark on reclaim, but 36 to basically 37k brought in there for TA. That's what's allowed him to get that advanced RAS online. I think it's fair to say TA's done enough to get that in play quickly enough. He hasn't yielded too much territory, hasn't strangled or throttled his unit production to such a point that he can't push his way back into this game, which I think you can see is exactly what he's doing. Yamadama going to have to funnel more Ascendants into his mix. You can see they're starting to grow in number here, but if he wants to keep these Restorers off his back, Flak has to become a much higher priority on the list. He's not going to be able to fend off these Restorers from the air. Too many ASFs, too many Swift Winds in play. He comes in for a little bit of a bombing run in the meantime. But they didn't have any real impact on the game. Those Restorers at the bottom causing far too many issues. ASFs on the field now, though, for Yamadama. He has actually got a lot of interceptors in play. They're going to go for the 3 exposed Restorers at the bottom as they come over the ridge, looking to make themselves a bit of a nuisance, and then turn around, realizing they're going to gain no traction there. Swift Winds come in to counter a lot of this air, but TA massively outnumbered if you factor in all of the T1 interceptors as well. Those Restorers, of course, just don't have the speed to keep up with the Swift Winds. Yeah, he needs to be a little bit careful here. Doesn't want to throw away all these Restorers, which I think he might just do. And that is quite the turn of events in the air. It's because curse of the commentator, I said that Yamadama didn't have what it took at the moment to deal with TA4life's air from the air, and of course what does he do? He goes and deals with it from the air, but that is just the way things go. But look at the army of Harbingers that have just turned up on the field for Yama. TA4life funneling more in this direction, but I'm a little bit concerned for his sake about the amount he must be investing elsewhere. I don't know exactly where it's going. He's got another upgrade going on his commander. Can't be funneling too much into eco, otherwise he would at least be staying on par with Yamadama, who is now, well, he is suddenly, again, curse the commentator, the minute I say it, he jumps to 250 a pop just ahead, in fact, for TA. TA trying to throw together a whole bunch of eruptors up here at the front, but they're just not going to slow down these Harbingers at all. Murder all of the build capacity behind and then go to work on the eruptors. Absolver up here as well. Of course, not a bad decision to get some shield disruptors in the mix when you're facing off against another Aeon. Nullifies those Harbingers and their personal shields. But that is a scary, scary looking bunch of T3. TA, please tell me you've got a GC or something to fend this off with. Got the odd sniper bot back here. Yamadama being just a little bit cautious, wanting to overextend and throw away this advantage that he's managed to grab. Instead he's going to wheel south. He's going to threaten the two T2 mexes down here for TA and take out all of the static D. It's been placed down there to defend it, and it all goes. Nasty little ball of death spiders. I'm wondering if Yamadama has been a little too conservative there. There wasn't a great deal on the field for TA. He might have been able to get in here and cause some real damage. He's given TA a little bit of breathing room now by going south instead. TA just continually stocking up on Oblivion turrets, coupled with those asylums, affording them a little bit of protection at the same time. What's going on back at base over here? More base defense, more eco. Azar queued up, that's interesting. Never understand or never know what the commitment is going to be like to a project like that until they at least start building it, however. At times you see these things queued up and they think, ah, no. Wave of inties crossing the map for Yamadama. Looking about as much of a recon mission as anything. To gain a little bit of info on what's happening on this side of the map. TA4life beginning to edge ahead again in eco slightly. And that Tsar has indeed been started, and TA4life will have just spotted it. You can see, there we go. So he will be well aware that that is under construction. It's always the way as well. You start something like that, and that's when your opponent decides to send a plane. Hasn't done it all game until the minute you actually don't want him to see something. Spy plane chooses a very ill-advised picnic spot. It's torn apart by Ascendants lying in wait, and a few Serenities here for TA. Aeon T3 mobile artillery. That splash is going to really cause an issue if these units bunch up and sit there any longer. Yamadama wisely backing up. TA4life's ASFs hovering above the expansion base there, getting torn apart by a combination of flak and Yamadama's horde of ASFs, which is looking pretty deadly right about now. We'll take a look at who's doing better. 32 ASFs on the field currently for Yamadama, just 11 for TA. It's amazing to see how dominant Yamadama's been in the air for the last 5 or 10 minutes or so. Probably more like 10 when you think of how the game started. It was definitely TA that went for the air upgrades first. But priorities have shifted, as they so often do in this game. That is a nasty, nasty ball of Harbingers, coupled with decent mix of Ascendants, the odd Serenity, a bunch of Obsidians as well. Just generally a horrible, horrible group of units. Needs to keep it on the move though, needs to be really careful. He doesn't allow TA any time to pound on it with artillery. The shells incoming, but not landing squarely in the pack, so that's good news for Yamadama as he begins to push on the northern aperture once again. TA4life is going to fall back. You can see the shields dissipating there, the asylums capitulating to the weight of firepower coming out from Yamadama. TA backs up, losing pretty much all of his Harbingers in that northern pack. Yama's going to want to bring those Ascendants with him. Not facing any massive danger, at least not at the moment. TA4life still focused on producing ASFs rather than restorers, so no major threat from the air for that group of units. But once again, he could really do some damage, I think, with that ball if he just decided to push. Yes, there are a lot of Oblivion turrets, but they're only going to increase in number over time, and you have a pretty significant advantage in units. But he doesn't need to listen to me. He, after all, is rated 1903 in ladder ranking, and I don't actually have a ranking in ladder. But Tsar online now, and with the overwhelming advantage that Yamadama's had in the skies, I don't know how TA is going to shoot this thing down. You see the spy plane coming over that corner there from TA. He's clearly been concerned about it. And now he has all the more reason to be concerned as that Tsar makes contact with a few units at the bottom there for TA. In comes TA's ASFs, but just too few in number to stand any chance of shooting it down. The question is, has he beefed up his static defenses? He's got a few Transcenders there, some SAMs. Is the Tsar getting bogged down, killing engineers when it could be putting holes in TA's base and giving him yet more opportunity to build anti-air, which is all he's focusing on now. Look at the amount of Ascendants pouring out of all of these T3 factories. 42 kills on the Tsar so far. Yamadama, of course, being pretty cautious, not wanting to gift TA a mass present, which he might just do, but this is the real test now as he comes over the top of TA4life's core base, wheels south, and starts popping engineers. And if you can bear with me and ignore the phone in the background, will hopefully stop at some point. And I'm guessing it's probably not going to, so we're going to take a brief pause, and you're going to bear with me because you're such wonderful people. Always a danger of such issues like that, but never mind. And look at that, down into the red, 17,000 HP left on that Tsar so far, and it's just running riot through TA's base. I think he's going to be able to pop it. Will it get out over the ridge? No, it won't. Mild miscalculation there from Yamadama. If he'd have managed to get it over the ridge, he could have potentially protected it with a ball of T3, but now TA is going to be able to reharvest that. And that will go some way to alleviating the pressure a little bit. Slow this up and take a quick look at what's going on base-wise. No super weapons on the way or anything. TA4life ready for any potential nuke attacks. Got a strategic missile defense in place. Has started work on a GC. Should be able to get that online now without any major difficulty. Now he's got that Tsar wreck to recycle. But Yamadama going to go for a little bit of a push here. 39 minutes gone in this one so far, and TA4life is going to have to yield yet more ground. Engineers about 50% of the way through that wreck so far. Got to be concerned about Serenities nestling in up here and bombarding that group of engineers over the top, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen at the moment. And look at the amount of TAC missiles thrown together in the middle there from TA. I don't think he's going to be allowed to keep that base. TA looking very thin on the ground in this part of the map. Yamadama with a very strong sandwiching push and knock out that TAC missile base and simultaneously drive what's left of TA's ground forces back into the base. And Yamadama looking like he might actually go for a main central push into the main base, but that GC very nearly done now. 85,000 hit points and climbing. Few of the Harbingers breaking through, very low on HP. Engineers and build capacity back here, throwing together eruptors as quickly as they can. 95,000 hit points and climbing on the Galactic Colossus. More Harbingers pouring into the main base, but I don't think we're going to be able to cripple TA, at least not at the moment. GC finally online. Giant laser of doom, never so much appreciated, but he's a little bit too far away from the breach. And look at this, look at the amount of T3 pouring into his expansion. Loses another T3 power gen back there. More factories going down, and now T3 and T2 mexes under pressure here at minute 41, and another wave of course coming in from the south. TA looking very light on numbers here. He's got banks and banks of this groups of eruptors T1, but nothing that's going to definitively squash this attack. GC looking like he's going to be able to deal with all this, but he's going to lose yet another T3 power gen. How is TA's T3 power situation in general? He's got plenty of power to play with at the moment. I think he's got enough point defense to stall this attack. But goodness me, What a push that has been. GC hasn't drawn much fire, as we may well have expected. And a nuke strategic missile defense completed. Looked like it was about to get popped there. Fortunately, not the case. But goodness gracious me. 367 mass income for Yamadama, 243 for TA after that large marauding attack from the Blues as they went stomping through his base. Silver lining, if there is one of course, is there is a ton of mass on the ground for TA to recycle. Question is, can he do it? And can he do it quickly enough to get back on some kind of level pegging with Yamadama, who is streaks ahead in terms of eco. 43 minutes gone in this one so far. A new death ball of T3 accumulating in the middle for Dharma. TA begins to move out though. He has of course got that GC in tow. He's going to want to consolidate his forces a little bit more, I should think. Having said that, there's a lot of Serenities in the pile, so loose formation may be a plus. GC test the water up front. This is where you really notice the difference between Aeon and say UEF or Cybran. You'd feel a lot less comfortable engaging that number of T3 bots with your experimental if you were facing a Cybran or a UEF player. Harbingers just don't pack the same punch as the bricks and of course the mighty Percivals. Lots and lots of build capacity now pushing out for TA, scooping up every little bit of mass he can get his hands on. Yamadama has pulled in a snifter under 58k mass in this game so far. TA4life, conversely, a whopping 232, going 233k mass and climbing. That's an extraordinary amount. TA4life, of course, predominantly under the heavier amount of attack. He's had that Tsar wreck to reclaim, and he's had half his base to reclaim as well, because most of that expansion went up in flames in that previous attack. Dharma nestles his Serenities in against the central reservation of this map. And what kind of range are we getting? He could really sting all of that build capacity that's lining up on this ridge. Wants to keep these at distance from this pile, doesn't want to get too close. And what have we got here? Major little air engagement there, and it's Shockers, Aeon Strat Bombers going after TA4life's GC, which has gone all around the houses and looks to be currently chasing down possibly the Serenities. He'd love to get his hands on those if he could, but he's got nothing to go after with his Strat Bombers with, because of the overwhelming presence that Yamadama has in the air with his ASFs. So he's just got to continue to eat Strat Bomber fire, and of course the troubling thing is, once that GC is down, all the rest of these Harbingers are likely to go the same way. GC down to just 20,000 HP. Dharma desperately needs to get this GC out of commission. If he can do that, he's got an open field once again. And there it finally goes. And now all this build capacity up front, trying to throw together eruptors under pressure. It's just going to be a regular festival of popping candy. There they go. What's being built in here? There must be a new super weapon of some kind. We've got support commanders down here for Dharma. Going resource allocation, so that's how he's going to be stacking his resources from now on. Are we going the same way yet for TA? He has got his quantum gateway in place. Next GC currently paused in construction, but at least 3/4% or 3/4 done, 75% complete. Support commander's actually moving out from TA up towards the top aperture. 49 minutes gone in this one so far. TA4life comes out for another push. Still, though, no major answer for these shockers. He's trying to build up on ASFs as best he can, but every time he comes in to pick off one or two, he risks losing some, if not all, of his ASFs, which is what looks like is going to happen once again this time. There it does. What choice there is to him available at this point, though, I do not know. We've got bombs continuously landing overhead around that GC. Engineers getting out here to try and reclaim the wreck. Dharma furiously bombing the build capacity, determined not to let that happen. Support commander getting a little bit overzealous. That must have been a misclick. Walks straight on into Oblivion turret fire. But so many transcenders popping up all over the place on TA4life's half of the map. Dharma needs to be really careful. He does not want to throw away his advantage in this one. It looks like he could be doing just that. Might not be aware at the rate at which he's losing ASFs. Small band of units there at the bottom for TA, trying to retain control of the edge of the map where the GC wreck lies so we can get some more engineers in there to reclaim it. But what cost? These Serenities continuously causing problems. TA still trying to get close enough to them to take them out, but does not look like he's having any success there at all. But in the meantime, second GC online for TA, continuing to push. Notice how much thinner Dharma's horde of ASFs look now. That's because he's spending far too much time on this side of the map. TA4life keeping them here by spitting out ASFs, going straight into the pile. He knows that he's getting back on top of the air game. GC continues to push. Meanwhile, back here, and there's not a great deal on the ground that can contend with it. Up until now, of course, he's been relying on superior air power, but that suddenly, out of nowhere, at minute 52 in this one, looks like that's no longer going to be the case. He's got some more ASFs back here, but not a great deal on the field out attacking or surrounding and defending these restorers that are attacking the GC. So if TA4life really made a commitment here and a push to get air control or air dominance back, he could do just that if he wanted to. He's got 3 T3 air factories going on back here, and a strategic missile launcher way up here at the back that's looks like 85% done on a nuke. Really getting to that stage in the game. Lots of restorers harassing the GC, and TA4life might not be able to do anything about it. It looks like Yamadama, at least for the moment, has managed to retain dominance in the air. And Yamadama going for an emissary, T3 heavy artillery. It's beautiful to see. I guess TA doesn't believe he can deal sufficiently at the moment with the air threat. Looks like he's trying to get his GC back to safer territory, at least temporarily. Last restorer down, or sorry, penultimate restorer down. This will be the last one. There it goes. He's still got the odd shocker to deal with. But look at this cheeky band of 4 Serenities nestled up against Dharma's expansion. Just to take out that T3 mechs if he can. But TA4life actually ahead on eco. 495 versus 479. You can really see the difference that the reclaim has made in this one. This continual air battle is going on, not allowing either player to stockpile their weapons. Yamadama still somehow retaining superiority in the air. But TA4life's done enough to keep the GC alive, at least for now. 25,000 hit points left on that puppy. Yamadama has amassed another pretty sizable land force. And with that GC so heavily depleted of its HP, he's got to feel like he can take it at the next engagement. But he might have overlooked this one, as we indeed have. Made its way through the northern aperture, bearing down on Yamadama's base, and there's not a great deal of defense down here. All of the combat, or the conflict, has been going on this side of the map for about the last half an hour or more. TA4life's got a lot of static defense dotted around this area. Conversely, not a lot going on for Yamadama. TA has got some asylums in place to help shield that GC. He's deciding not to attack with it, which I find peculiar. He's reacting to the movement of this T3. He's going to use that time instead to push through the southern aperture, and if he can jostle backwards and forwards these two, I guess he feels like he can curtail Dharma into his base. An emissary coming up to 50% complete. That nuke launcher, however, has one in the clip. TA4life can find an opening to snipe a key strategic missile defense. You can put a hole in Yama's base and effectively end this one. Restore is going to work, trying to finish off that earlier GC, but to no avail. Too many ascendants now joining the front line. TA4life still managed to keep the other GC alive. 67,000 HP on that one as well. Yama's backed up with His ground forces now well and truly stuck inside his base. But astonishingly, TA now looking the stronger in the air, and way ahead on eco as well. 30 odd, 35 odd mass in it, 36 odd mass in it. Definitely was ahead there by quite a considerable margin. It's dropped down again. Emissary sapping a huge amount of Yamadama's eco. This will either be the making or the breaking of him. Not seeing a stockpiling of strap bombers or anything like that. TA4life must just be happy that he's now got the air initiative in this one. Should allow him to push in with his experimentals if he can. He's got to be concerned about the number of harbingers on the field. Certainly a lot of them. Support commander getting a little bit overzealous there, wandering a little bit too far forward. That will be the end of his adventure. 9,500 hit points and climbing on that emissary. As that GC comes in for a couple of pot shots. Needs to be real careful though. Just 8,000 hit points left in the tank. And a whole bunch of miasmas queued up there for Yamadama. I think he's going to be able to get to complete it. As Colossus could do with a timely veterancy rank up, but he's not going to manage it. Colossus coming in the top as well for TA. That was a nice sync up on timing. Unfortunately, they just don't have a lot of HP. Certainly the bottom one didn't. This one pushing on forward. What's it going for? If it could take out the emissary, that would make TA4life breathe a little easier. Looks like that's what he's beelining for, but he's taking an awful lot of fire. Shockers coming in over the top as well. He's approaching under the shield. And just as he breaches the shield, GC gives up the ghost. Now passing the 1 hour mark, officially epic in nature. TA4life decides to continue to push. Support commander going pop at the front there. What on earth? Emissary down? I can only surmise that it was the Shockers. Beautiful strap bomb there. Took advantage of the depleted shield, came in over the top to knock out the T3 artillery, and that surely has to be game. Got a Tsar under construction at the back for TA. And Yamadama calls it quits, rightfully so. Small minor desync at the end there, but we won't worry about that. What a game it must have been. So many things going on, almost impossible to keep track of, but it must have been those strats over the top, taking advantage of the shield being depleted by the GC. And really, to be honest, I think that's what killed the Yamadama. Wonderful things to go online. It's great when you see them go online, but it just meant that TA had too much firepower on the ground and the air, could funnel too many resources in that direction. So for once, the gamble didn't pay off. But I hope you enjoyed that, guys. As always, more to come from me in the future. In the meantime, stay well and stay safe. This is Gyle, signing out.